Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces virtual worship service. My name is Sarah Reyes, and I will be today's moderator. Here's a couple of things that will help make our service run a little better. Number 1, please keep yourself muted and your video off during the service and during the songs. Number 2, the words of the songs and doxologies will be shared on your screen through Zoom. Number 3, we will turn off the congregation chat function throughout the worship service to minimize distractions. However, we will have the chat function available during a few segments for you to interact with, if needed. You may also widen your own screen when in the split video option. This will make it easier to view service associates' lyrics on screen as well as the videos within the service. Finally, for best audio service, we recommend using headphones if you're alone or a Bluetooth speaker if you're in groups. Please enjoy today's service.
Okay. Okay. Ready?
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threatened and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start and ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin.
Good morning. Today's opening words are from Rolf Jacobson. All people are children when they sleep. They open their hands and breathe in that quiet rhythm heaven has given them. They pucker their lips like small children and open their hands halfway. Soldiers and statesmen, servants and masters.
Good morning. Our chalice lighting words this morning are excerpts from The Shame Trap by Linda Bloom and Charlie Bloom. There is a difference between shame and guilt. Guilt means I made a mistake. Shame means I am a mistake. Shame is an immensely painful feeling that we are all alone, unworthy of love and belonging. There are incidents in our history that have been hidden from view because they are so painful. The specific incident or series of incidents are not what is most damaging to our lives. It's the secrecy that does it. A great place to start when healing shame is to have a bit of compassion for ourselves. We will surely continue to suffer greatly until we reach out to at least one human being to share our shame. Breaking the silence, even if it is only one trustworthy person who knows the truth, combats the awful feeling of being alone. These words will help you remember how to get out of the shame trap. reveal rather than conceal, express rather than repress, connect rather than protect, accept rather than reject. We light our chalice today in hopes of revealing, expressing, connecting, and accepting those incidents in our lives that cause us shame and suffering. May we be healed. Please join me now in saying our church's affirmation of covenant and singing the doxology in English and in Spanish. The words are printed in your electronic order of service and will appear on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land by every tongue. De todos bajo el gran sol, su esperanza, fe, amor, verdad, belleza en la canción, de cada tierra, cada voz.
Good morning, and welcome to the continuing virtual worship service for the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. My name is Sally Atkinson, and I'm your service associate for this service. We're delighted to be with you and to have you join us. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms. Everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church and check the events calendar at our website, UUCLC.org. In order to help continue to contain the spread of the coronavirus, all meetings and services at the church are currently being held using Zoom software. If you have any questions about how to use Zoom, you may contact Sarah Reyes, the church's technical support staff member. If you're visiting with us today, we'd like to meet you. Please introduce yourself by turning on your microphone and camera. Share your name and tell us where you are. We'd also like to know how you heard about our virtual worship services. Do we have any visitors this morning? If you're a shy visitor but are curious about our church, please leave your email in the chat box and you will be invited to other activities and services of the church. And welcome. Directly following this service, there will be a 15-minute opportunity to fellowship with one another. Just stay linked into this site after the service ends, and you will be placed in a breakout room. Please be aware that religious education begins at 11:30 and is held using their own Zoom link, which is found in today's electronic order of service and in the Week at a Glance. Today, I have only one announcement. The UU Church of Las Cruces' fall event and services auction is scheduled for September the 25th, 2021. The theme of this year's auction is Get Plugged In. We need volunteers. Please contact Katie Fitzgerald if you would like to volunteer to help with the auction. You may email her at hhands39@gmail.com. If you haven't already donated an event or service, forms will soon be made available both online and in the library. You can email, mail, or drop them off. Thank you all for being with us today.
Good morning, church. Kelly Ingram here with this morning's Time for All Ages. Today I'm going to be reading the story, Leo, the Late Bloomer. Leo couldn't do anything right. He couldn't read. He couldn't write. He couldn't draw. He was a sloppy eater, and he never said a word. "What's the matter with Leo?" asked Leo's father. "Nothing," said Leo's mother. "Leo is just a late bloomer." "Better late than never," thought Leo's father. Every day, Leo's father watched him for signs of blooming. And every night, Leo's father watched him for signs of blooming. "Are you sure Leo's a late bloomer?" asked Leo's father. "Patience," said Leo's mother. "A watched bloomer doesn't bloom." So Leo's father watched television instead of watching Leo. The snows came, but Leo's father wasn't watching. Leo still wasn't blooming. The trees budded. Leo's father wasn't watching, but Leo still wasn't blooming. Then one day, in his own good time, Leo bloomed. He could read, he could write, he could draw. He ate neatly, and he also spoke. And it wasn't just one word, it was a whole sentence. And that sentence was, "I made it."
Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part I seek. Let me be
One of the ways we support one another in community is through the sharing of joys and sorrows. Especially in this time of social distancing, it is crucial that we make attempts to stay connected to one another. Our church's website has a link which allows you to confidentially submit a joy, sorrow, or milestone to Reverend Coachella. You can specify if you would like your submission to be shared with the caring team and/or the congregation, or if you prefer that it remain confidential with the minister. There were no joys and sorrows shared this week. Nonetheless, as human beings sharing space on this planet at this hour, we all hold hopes and dreams, wounds and worries in our hearts. Remembering this, let us treat one another with patience and love.
Today's meditation is from the indigenous people of Norway. According to the tradition, the grandmother world drum belongs to all human hearts. With each beat, the drum says the song of Mother Earth grows stronger, calling humankind to return to their hearts through a message of hope, inspiring us to unite and heal. I invite you to pray and or meditate with me. I sit down with the world drum at the center of the circle with my drum in hand. I expose my drum's wound that has been growing gradually over the last year, growing bigger and more severe, like the wound of the mother I am healing. I place my hand on the frame where it is buckled like my Hungarian grandmother's arthritic knuckles, twisted and stretched beyond recognition. The drum is made of moose hide, stained with walnut dye, and the frame is cherry wood, a significant tree of my ancestors from Hungary. As I place my hand on the tear, I begin to caress the drum. The tear for me symbolizing suffering and hurt between nations, brothers and sisters, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, communities and families. Prayers for healing, separation, flow through the palm of my hand as words from my heart rise to the surface like a healing balm, reconnecting mind and heart, body and spirit, awakening our deep soul connection to the Great Mother. I feel my drum opening to receive the medicine, while healing vibrations extend out into the room. My 6-year-old granddaughter, witnessing the vulnerability of her grandmother, without hesitation in the midst of a group of people she does not know, responds by entering the circle and sitting next to me. She gently places her hand on my drum next to mine, joining me in the prayer that flows through my heart. Through this blessing, I gain a deeper understanding of my purpose and value in this world, to transform the limiting belief of separation, restoring connection to self, spirit, and Mother Earth. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
What wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this, oh my soul? What wondrous love is this that gives my heart such my soul, and takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down, sinking down, when I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's crown, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul, oh my soul, friends to me gathered round, oh my soul. To love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing. To love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing. With thanks unto the end I will sing.
Good morning. I hope everyone is having a great summer, and the summer seems like it's going full speed. We're in August. Hard to believe we've been in this pandemic so long, and that the year is getting by us so quickly. I'm coming this Sunday virtually because one, I'm still on vacation, and two, I wanted to attend the church camp out in the Gila, and doing the service pre-recorded this time would allow me to do both of those. I have had a good vacation thus far, and I want to thank Maggie Locatelli for being in charge of the services over the summer, along with Catherine and the other members of the worship team. And I have full gratitude for the ministers and teachers who have preached during my absence, and I am sure that they all were inspiring and lifted you up in many important ways, and have done a great job in my absence. Well, last year I was on the UUA Skinner Sermon Award panel and had the opportunity of grading several sermons. And I preached one of them already about life in an institution. And today I want to preach another one called Love Me in My Shame. I just found this sermon to be very helpful to me, and it was very inspiring also. And I think it does a great justice to this notion of naming shame and how shame can have such a big impact in our lives. It was preached by my colleague last February, so several months ago. I hope that this sermon works well for you today. Love me in my shame. Perhaps you are already aware of Unitarian Universalism's 7 principles, a denominational statement which articulates values and attitudes that cut across all our differences of opinion, a statement which unites us and gives us a common core. But have you ever heard of the 7 anti-Unitarian Universalist principles? Well, the answer is no, because I cooked them up just yesterday. Anti-principle number 7, the only existence that matters is human existence. This is exactly opposite of our real seventh principle, which affirms respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. See how the anti-principle logic goes. Anti-principle number 6, the goal of America first, versus the real sixth principle, which affirms the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Anti-principle number 5, might makes right, versus the real fifth principle, which affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Anti-principle number 4, the uncritical consumption of alternative facts, versus the real fourth principle, which affirms a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Isn't it interesting to see our principles from an anti-point of view? I think it helps make them even more meaningful and valuable, and maybe you do too. But there's more. Anti-principle number 3, judgmentalism towards one another and spiritual apathy in our congregations, versus the real third principle, which affirms acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregations. Anti-principle number 2, oppression, bullying, and humiliation in human relations, versus the real second principle, which affirms justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And finally, anti-principle number 1, the inherent shamefulness of every person, versus the real first principle, which affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person. All of the anti-principles are at play in our world today, and as Unitarian Universalists, we are called to resist. This is fundamentally not about politics, but about faithfulness to our core values as a religion. No political party is exempt from critique when they endorse or implement policies that run contrary to our principles. When I stand in this pulpit, I stand in it not as a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or as something else, but as a Unitarian Universalist. I promise you that. Now, it would take years and many sermons to do justice to all the ways in which the 7 anti-principles plague our world. So today, I'm narrowing my focus, and I will do that on something that might not get a lot of time in UU pulpits or pulpits of any kind: shame. Unitarian Universalism's first principle says that people are fundamentally worthy. Shame says people are fundamentally worthless. The first principle says that a person's essential value is unconditional. Shame is a voice in your head saying, you are not good enough. You will never be good enough. Who do you think you are? Getting laid off and having to tell your partner who is relying on you triggers shame. Having someone ask you, when are you due? But you are not pregnant. Shame. Hiding the fact that you're an alcoholic. Hiding that fact from all the people who think you're perfect. Shame. Losing your temper once again with the kids over something stupid. Shame. Bankruptcy. Shame. Your partner sitting in the passenger side telling you how to drive. That's shame. Being infected with an STD. Shame. Committing a microaggression and you did not mean to. Such shame. Infertility triggers shame. Your boss calling you an idiot in front of the client. So shaming. You are just being yourself, but someone calls you out, says you're acting too big for your britches. The shame. You will never be good enough. Who do you think you are? Oh, ouch. Our first principle is beloved because it brings us back to our unconditional worth and it makes us feel calm and centered and whole. But shame makes us forget. Shame makes us feel like the life is being strangled out of us. We're being pulled down into an abyss of soul crushing chaos. The experience is simply so traumatic that we instinctively defend against it. We do anything to make it go away. Shame researchers tell us that there are essentially three things people do. One is to move away from shame, to withdraw from all that triggers it, to hide, to become silent, to keep secrets. Here's where you vanish from others and you vanish from yourself. Another thing people do is to move towards shame, allow it to melt our sense of personal integrity and erase personal boundaries, so that it makes perfect sense to practice abject people pleasing, to allow another to walk all over you, to enable bad behavior. Yet a third thing people can do in the face of the strangling, soul sucking sensation of shame is to move against it. This looks like aggression against the person who appears to have triggered your shame. This looks like bullying. This looks like violence. Shame is so painful. We do anything to wriggle out of its grasp. So, against this anti principle, the real first principle brings peace. The real first principle that affirms our inherent worth and dignity is like the poem from Rolf Jacobson that I read during the opening words. It goes like this: all people are children when they sleep. They open their hands and breathe in that quiet rhythm heaven has given them. They pucker their lips like small children and open their hands halfway. Soldiers and statesmen, servants and masters. When people sleep, all our social distinctions and differences fall away. We're all equally children of God. But shame is the war in us. Shame is the sickness. Shame makes us vulnerable to aggression, depression, eating disorders, addictions, violence, and suicide. I would even go as far as to suggest that the seeds of anti-principles 2 through 7 are planted by anti-principle number 1. This is why it is urgent that we talk about what researcher Brene Brown calls shame resilience, but what we Unitarian Universalists could also call, very simply, the practice of our first principle. The practice of our first principle begins with raising awareness, which is what you and I are doing right here and right now. Shame is real, and it's not just an internal state that stays inside, it infects the world. We need to know this and we need to speak it. Shame, says Brene Brown, derives its power from being unspeakable. Shame hates having words wrapped around it, but we are wrapping words around it today. We are naming it today. And the next thing we do as a part of our practice of our first principle is to reality check the shame. President Obama once said something in his book, Dreams from My Father, that we need to hear right now. He said, and I quote, "We might be locked in a world not of our own making, but we still have a claim on how it is shaped. One of the ways we are locked into a world not of our own making is through racialization. We are made black, and we are made white, and we are made brown, and on and on. And all that that entails. An impersonal, prejudicial system backed by social power is reproduced through us. Biases and prejudices are implanted in us without our permission. And the white supremacy system, I'm just going to name it as I see it because it sure ain't a black supremacy system, reinforces itself through shame. Shame is what locks us in. Black women shame when they wear their hair naturally. The internalized racism that shames people of color. A white child shamed when he notices that his friend's skin color is different from his, and he asks about that loudly in public. Be silent, the white mother says, feeling ashamed. And she says what she says and feels the shame she feels because she has been racialized all her life to be blissfully ignorant of all matters race related. Therefore, she thinks that the very act of talking about race is racist. Shame keeps us locked in, so we must name it. We must reality check it. We must practice shame resilience. The message of Black Lives Matter, this banner that so many of our congregations nationwide have posted outside for all the world to see, is really about shame resilience. Our Unitarian Universalist principle, or our first principle, promises something to us regarding all the forces that want to lock us in. They can try as hard as they want, but we still have a claim on how our story is shaped. Yet another dimension of this relates to the world of gender identity. How gender messages and expectations are foundational shame triggers. Patriarchy is the word for a system of meanings and practices that shape appropriate masculine and feminine identity. Patriarchy wields a cattle prod to keep people towing the line, and that cattle prod is shame. Consider this gender expectation. Be perfect. Don't make a fuss about it, and don't take time away from anything like your family or your partner or your work to achieve your perfection. If you're truly worthy, perfection should be easy. Is this a primarily masculine or feminine expectation? What do you think? Then there's this gender expectation. Never allow people to think you're weak. Be all adequate in all aspects of life. Don't ask for help. Primarily masculine or feminine? Or what about this? Say what's on your mind, but don't upset anyone or hurt anyone's feelings. Primarily masculine or feminine? Or this, never cry or show emotion except at sporting events. It's okay then. But anger is always permissible everywhere because anger is strength. Primarily masculine or feminine? The primarily feminine gender expectations are the first and third, and both are classic double binds. There's no way to win. Think of our past female presidential candidates and the hoops they had to jump through. Anything they did, anything women do is going to disappoint the rule of patriarchy and trigger shame. So one common solution is to repress one's Wonder Woman potentials, to learn to stay small, stay sweet, stay quiet, stay modest. But the side product of this is inevitable repressed rage, and it comes out as mean-spiritedness, very often towards other women who refuse to stay small. This is what happens. As for the primarily masculine expectations, the second and fourth, it's all about not being a wimp. Don't show fear. Don't show inadequacy. You do that and people shame you. Other men shame you. Other women shame you. That's right. The keepers of the patriarchy aren't just men. One of the many refreshing and surprising things that Brene Brown surfaces through her shame research is to find that, quote, in those moments when real vulnerability happens in men, most women recoil with fear, and that fear manifests as everything from disappointment to disgust, end quote. She goes on to quote a male friend who says, men know what women really want. They want us to pretend to be vulnerable. We get really good at pretending. It's just hard for everyone. However, you have been gendered under patriarchy, but it gets more manageable when you are aware of the unrealistic expectations that send you into your shame spiral. And on this basis, you can reality check it. As someone who identifies primarily with the feminine, you can say no to the double bind. As someone who identifies primarily with the masculine, you can say no to the demand that you are always and in all ways strong. And if you are gender non-binary or gender fluid, whenever one or the other sets of standards tries to get you to dance their tune, just say no. We have to reality check the unrealistic expectations and name and claim the shame. I wish someone had preached this sermon to me years ago. Years ago, male shame was a factor in ending my marriage, and I didn't see it. I didn't see it until recently, actually. Over the years, I've gone over the whole thing again and again. And as you can imagine, I thought I had sifted through the experience thoroughly and discovered everything there was to be discovered. But I hadn't. Reflecting on the shame this week led me to connecting some dots that I hadn't connected before. It's actually rather simple. My wife back then was fully in her world of work. It was a world that I was not a part of, even as my work world was separate from hers. And that fact, that she gained such satisfaction and grew so much from a world completely a part of me, triggered shame. It meant I could not provide all she needed. And to the male in me, there was only one conclusion. It meant I was weak. It meant I was unworthy. Years of feeling this unworthiness melted my insides. I did not know how to talk about it. I did not know what was happening. I could not reality check. I could not recover. What I did was withdraw into my work, withdraw into my hobbies, hide. My wife would reach out and I would step back. The result was mutual desperation. I just didn't have the awareness and the reality checking skills I do now. I've earned them the hard way. And I am telling this story despite the fact that I might very well have committed the grave sin of pastoral oversharing, of pastoral TMI. But I risk this because I want to demonstrate through my own life yet another way to practice the first principle. Tell your shame stories to people who love you and you trust them. Tell your shame stories to people who will respond, not with criticism or condescension, not with armchair quarterbacking, but by turning right back around and telling their shame stories to you. What happens is the building of empathic connection. Shame can't survive shared empathy. It just can't. We have been locked into racial identities and gender identities and other identities not of our own making, and shame, not recognized, not reality checked, not spoken, keeps us there. But our Unitarian Universalist first principle tells us that we don't have to believe in that shame, in the lie that that shame is trying to spread. Black people and white people and people of all colors can grow into racial identities that are healthy and liberating. We can grow into forms of manhood and womanhood and gender fluidity, any other hoods of gender orientation there may be that liberate, not constrict and wound. White supremacy culture be damned and patriarchy be damned. I am asking you to love me in my shame and love each other in your shame. Love. Do it because you are Unitarian Universalist and this religion calls you to it. We cultivate love, Brene Brown says, when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. And when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. Love is not something we give or get. It is something that we nurture and grow, a connection that can only be cultivated between two people when it exists within each one of them. We can only love others as much as we love ourselves. That's what she says. All I know is that the 7 Unitarian Universalist anti-principles plague our world right now. But if we start cultivating love, if we can practice the real first principle love, if we can love ourselves and love each other, even in the midst of our deepest shame, then there is freedom. Then there is release. Then there is humanity. And then those 7 anti-Unitarian Universalist anti-principles, or let me say that again, those 7 Unitarian Universalist anti-principles, they don't stand a chance. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
We continue to practice social distancing in order to preserve the gains made to deter the spread of the corona-19 virus. That's why we are not yet joining together in worship in our physical sanctuary. We remain committed to one another, connected in spirit. Many of the expenses of the church continue despite our not meeting in person. It is vitally important that any of us who are able continue fulfilling our pledges. Please refer to the electronic order of service or the member section of the church website to see how you can continue doing so. All through the pandemic, the church has continued its support of organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee as recipients for our Change for Change program. We can't collect your actual change, so please make your donations by check or through the church's website. This quarter's donations will go to El Calvario Immigrant Resource Center. This is a program located at the El Calvario Methodist Church. It has provided hospitality for immigrant families who have recently crossed the border and are on their way to family or sponsors in the interior. And it also provides other services as assisting immigrant families in Doñana County who to find needed resources for housing, health care, legal assistance, and emergency food. They also provide Know Your Rights education and were able to grant some financial assistance to families who were not able or not eligible for help during the pandemic. Kayla Parker wrote, "We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they would have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. May we give in love and hope.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Thanks, Kathy and Mark. That was gorgeous. If you're joining this worship service and are looking for a spiritual home and are sympathetic to Unitarian Universalist values and principles, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces may be the place for you. We believe that when you become a member, you are entering into a warm and deep relationship with the church and all of our members and friends. You are becoming a part of something much bigger than any of us. You're becoming a part of a movement to change our community and our world. The way you join this church is to sign the virtual membership book through the link in the electronic order of service. Or you can call the church, leave a message, and someone from the membership committee will contact you.
Go lifted up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. Go lifted up, love bless your way. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day.
Our closing words are from Liliana Cohan, titled Hidden Tears. Don't you have enough? Are you scared, little girl, sitting in a corner, wrapped up in your world? God only knows your fears inside. Don't run away. Listen what I have to say. Whoever made you feel unworthy of living, you're not guilty. You're not guilty. They're the one. You're not the one to blame. A million friends around, but no one close enough to let them know how you feel. So you turn your TV on and look at your heroes, your sheroes, your heart filled with hope. And for a moment, you let them take you into their world. But deep inside, you know you'll never be there. You're not worthy. You're not worthy. But this is not your voice. Whoever made you feel unworthy of living, they are the one to blame. You were never meant to live in shame. The stage of life is waiting, and you're the star. I'd like to close by thanking all those who participated in our worship team today. Sally Atkinson is our service associate. Kathy Cox is our music leader. Sarah Reyes is our tech guru. And of course, each of you, friends, members, and visitors to today's service. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.
Please join me in the words to extinguish the flame of our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. There you go. Can't rewind it.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Let's get together and
together, fight this holy Armageddon. When the man comes, there will be no doom. Have pity on those whose chances grow thinner. There ain't no hiding place from the Father of creation. We got one love, one heart, one heart. So let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright.
Me, that is reflected in
Masihlanganeni sonke sibe munye.
Suppressed. Cupped it wrong. Not going anywhere.
All right, now we're logging out.